Hello everyone, and welcome to our circle and Salve Women. For my one-on-one talk today, we are going to talk about what are you married to? Not who are you married to? Because some of you may think to yourself, well, I'm not going to be able to relate to this because I'm not married, I am single. And yet you have to ask yourself, regardless whether you're married or not, what is it that uses up most of your time that you feel you have committed yourself and devoted yourself to that perhaps is pulling you away from something else that you would rather be married to? So here we are, and whether again you're married or not, we're going to go ahead and talk about those components, and I'm sure there could be others as well, but these are the main components that I personally believe that pull you away from what you could perhaps be married to or would like to be married to. And so the first, of course, is your spouse. If you are married, then you know that's given. You should be married to your spouse. And so we're going to talk about being married to your spouse. The next one is your work. Being married to your work is yet a commitment that you would find yourself using up much of your time to be devoted to. Another one, of course, is your children, or if you have a child, or if you have anyone who you are raising who is a child. We know that that itself requires a lot of time, energy, and commitment. The next one is, of course, your parents or siblings. For those of you who are maybe married or getting married, or it may be not married, and yet are really having that mentality that family is just not just your immediate husband and your children, but also your parents and siblings who brought you together into this world, and now you feel as if you have to carry them through, or that you work together as you move together into your immediate family. Then that again could be pulling you, into a tie, into a commitment that may be something different than what you could be using your time and energy to, and all for the reasons that you have really come to terms with. Another one are your friends. Now, some of us have had friends that have really taken us through things in life that no one else has, or that you feel that they need you. And so in that reciprocated type of mentality, you may think to yourself that this person is with me all along the way, and regardless of what it is that I'm going to be moving toward, this person or these people are going to be with me along that ride. The next is your lifestyle. Some of us are married to our lifestyle, and we're going to talk about what that is and really understanding what that all means in the scope of being married to it. And then lastly, being married to yourself. And that is a big one, because if it is something that you haven't taken time to really think about it. How could you be married to yourself? So let's go ahead and get started with being married to your spouse. So let's get this out of the way. If you are married and you are married to your spouse, you know that's a commitment. That's a lifelong commitment, because in the journey, you know that at the end of the day, this is your foundation, and that you've got to build that. And you know that if you continue to strive for success in your marriage or in your partnership, this person is that one person that bonds as one. If this is broken right here, then everything else can also be taken apart. And so it is very important to understand that, because many will try to break this apart, because they know when you break a foundation down, then things can fall apart. It can implode, it could explode. And those who have had it happen to them, or have seen it happen, and they know that it works, they know this is what they're working on to break down. And so being married to your spouse takes that lifelong commitment every day, 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 mainly in a year. And so you have to really think to yourself, this is my commitment, and so this is my priority right here. This is my devotion. This is what I put my time and my energy in at most, and everything else has to take a second to this or third to this. No matter what, I've got to make sure that my partner, my spouse, and I work everything together as one. And regardless, no matter what it is, that we are working to be stronger and better each day. And that is your commitment, and that is in your mentality what has to work. And so you're putting a lot of energy into that, and that can really take away from everything else, especially when you know that there could be many struggles in that as well. And sometimes you teeter-tot, right? Because if one is low, you're high. You gotta find that balance. And a lot of people who've never really accustomed themselves to knowing how to really balance that, because they've never seen it, they've never had experience in it, or they've never seen things come to term in the long term, it's very difficult to try sometimes to do that on your own with your partner when you don't have anybody else leading the way. So you got to find the positivity all around you, to give you some advice, to give you some empowerment, to help you strengthen that foundation, to keep it going. So that is that everyday grit and grind. So that can take away from everything else. And that marriage right there could really take away from your friends, from other things, because you're just like, this can't give. This is where it is right here. And then everything else will follow. So now that I've covered that, then you have your work. It's difficult because some of us think, well, if I don't work, then there's no finances. What we afford ourselves to be able to do ends up destroying the family if I don't do it. And so, of course, we have these reasons within our mind that we justify and say, work is important. It is really, honestly, what keeps our family going. And if I don't work, then there's no food on the table, there's no car, there's no house, there's no lifestyle, there's nothing. And we know that in many cases, a lot of us think, well, money's the root of all evil, and yet the other side would go, no, without money is a root of all evil, because if there is no money, then we all fall apart. And so some of us take it to a level where I've got to put in 60, 80 hours, maybe even more than that per week, and everyone else has to understand that I'm not always going to be home. I'm not going to be able to go to your games. I'm not going to be able to go to any of your recitals. I'm not going to be able to go to any of your events or anything that has to do with you, or not even go out to dinner with my partner or my spouse. There's nothing I can do about that, because I've got to work first. And subconsciously, that there could have been times you could have put in more time with your family, or those that are waiting upon you or are really relying on you to give them some time. And yet you turn around and say, but hold on, work comes first, because without this job, then we have nothing. And then everybody else has to give and go, okay, I get that part. And then there's all of a sudden this gap that is being built, because you have put your work first. You've really truly married yourself into the work, having justified it as it is a necessity for all of us to survive. The other one then, without your with your spouse and your work, is of course your children. Sadly, I've seen families fall apart, not because of children alone. Children are such a blessing, and children are amazing. No other greater sacrifice than having children on its own. And I believe that's why, respectfully, there are people who are waiting or really thinking it through, because it's a big fear factor of thinking, oh my goodness, this is a lifetime commitment. My marriage, yes, but my children, it's like they're going to be depending on me for the rest of their lives, at least until they're adults, that I can take them to a point where they can be autonomous at a level where they can then survive for themselves. And there's that mother eagle that is slowly starting to peck at the nest, making it uncomfortable for the eagles, where eventually the eagles go, I'm just gonna jump off this nest and I'm gonna fly away. But until then, when they decide to or learn to fly on their own, or when the mom goes, and lets them go, all of a sudden you are making all those preparations, and it's everything that you possibly think that you can do. And so that commitment is for that moment that you have them. And for us that really believe in putting in every effort into that, it can really take so much out of you that for most of the time you don't feel like you're ever going to be doing enough. And there's this, driving here and preparing this here and making sure they're doing this here, and while at the same time you're trying to gather everything at home, and there's just so much involved where you're multitasking that you never feel that you're giving 100% to everything, because that 100 is being divided. And all of a sudden then your spouse is feeling a void, your work is being compensated, your friends, what friends? The only friends that you end up having sometimes are those who have a commonality with the lifestyle that you have with your children. So all of that, if you really truly devote in your time into your children, it takes away from everything else, because they are your priority. And in fact, when you make them your priority, it becomes your only priority, and then all of a sudden everything else is forgotten, because this is what I have to do right here. The emptiness is starting to show up by the time they're teenagers and they're going to their friend's home, and then all of a sudden they no longer maybe even need you at that time, because they're starting to really let go and starting to want to be making their own choices and starting to find who they truly are. And it's difficult for you because you're so used to giving them all of you, when all of a sudden all of you is no longer as much needed, and then you don't know how to make that adjustment. And everything, when you're giving everything to your children, then it can really take a toll on your emotional and mental and spiritual sense, in thinking, well, what do I do with my life now? And so being married to your children it's only for a short term, but a lot of us want to be married to them for the rest of our lives. The next one are your parents and siblings. Your parents and siblings, of course, were there for you growing up. Of course. No matter how dysfunctional your family was, there's this saying, blood is thicker than water. And so you feel compelled to have them be part of your life, even now when you have your immediate family. And that's unfortunate, because some people are going to be very disappointed in thinking, wow, so you think family is just your spouse and your children. Well, yes, because this is your inner circle. You have been raised to create your own family, and you have done everything you could, or whatever was fed into you, to do it right. And anyone who loves you and truly cares about you wants you to do that right, so it does not fall apart. Unfortunately, there may be some parents who then become so dependent growing up, and now they're depending on you to care for them. You have siblings that are depending on you to care for them, and here you are going, okay, hold on, I've got my spouse counting on me, I've got my children counting on me, but yet I feel guilty. Why am I feeling guilty for now trying to pull away from my parents and my siblings? Can't they understand that I have my family, and they should be supporting me? Shouldn't they be understanding? Shouldn't they be saying, hey, we've got ourselves, we're here to help you? It should not be the other way around. And there's this codependency between the parents and the children sometimes, for a lifetime. And again, this is you doing you, and it is to be respected of however you view that, and that is your perspective of life, and saying, well, my parents are going to be part of my life forever, and so are my siblings. Just understand, again, the topic is, what are you married to? And so if you are seemingly more impacted by what you're doing for your parents and your siblings, think about what's being taken away from your spouse and your children. When people love you, they're going to understand that you're doing whatever you can to balance everything, but it is within you to decide what is right. The next one is friends. Friends are hard to let go. Now, lucky for me, I went to 6 different elementary schools. I went to 2 different junior highs, and in high school, I got to see many of the ones that I went to see different schools and got to quite quickly just know by name throughout many schools. And so I was able to reunite with them by the time I was in high school. But by then, I was already disciplined in my heart and in my spirit to know, hey, those are temporary. You know, your true friend is yourself and whoever you're going to be committed to for a lifetime. And so for me, I knew that. However, I understand and completely respect that there are some of you, when I look at my children, and they've known some people since they were in preschool, you know, it just warms my heart so much, because I could live vicariously through that and go, oh my goodness, I wonder what that truly feels. And I can see in their eyes, I can see it in their smile, I can see it in their laughter. Sometimes I can see it in their anger when they have conflicts. And yet I'm like, wow, you got to feel those people. You got to really experience and really, you know, intertwine with their emotions. With me, I didn't have that connection. It was always on the surface. And so I truly understand that there are some that says, my friends are my everything. And so when I got married, when I got into a relationship or whatever it is that I'm in at this time, they travel with me. They are a part of me, and I will never let them go. And that is the conflict sometimes that creates this imbalance, that all of a sudden you brought them in, and perhaps your spouse is like, hold on, you can't always go out with your friends. You need to spend time with your children and your spouse, you know, me as well, and not think to yourself that you're going to be out with your boys or you're going to go out with your girls and think this is okay. You're married now, and then you're like, how can this be where what I used to do is no longer something that I can continue to do? And so that give, when you have to start to think how to balance that and how to make some sacrifices, where then as you make adjustments and as you move forward, how does that work? The next one is your lifestyle. Some of us think as long as my lifestyle is the way it is and there are no changes, then life is good and I'm happy, and you know what, just keep it this way and all is well. Well, guess what? Life is a roller coaster. There are going to be many things that are going to take you up. There are going to be things that are just going to quickly take you down. You got to know when to get back up and, you know, and pull yourself together for all of those counting on you. And sometimes it's not about you. You have to really think about all those that are going to be affected if you stay down for too long. And so that lifestyle can really hit you hard if you don't know how to deal with the adjustments, with all of the changes that inevitably will come, because life changes as we grow up. And so back in the day when you were young and you didn't have to get up early in the morning, and then now you're finding that you're getting up early in the morning because you have to make breakfast for your children, or that you have to go to their events even when your body doesn't feel like it, or that you have to, you know, smile or listen to 3 different children at the same time talking to you while your partner's talking to you, and you're just trying to figure out what to put on the table. You know, all of those things, that lifestyle that you are saying to yourself, you know, hold on, as long as my lifestyle is good in the eyes of all, I'm okay. And so it's this facade that you're trying to create, that you're really trying to juggle inside of you, that could really take away, that could make you crumble inside, because you're just like thinking to yourself, hold on, I'm trying to keep this lifestyle going, and I just want to make sure that it still looks pretty. But you know, in some cases it's not always going to be as pretty as you want it to be. And so that lifestyle could really hit you hard when you marry yourself into it and saying, this is what I have to make sure it keeps going. That last one is you. When we get into a marriage or whatever it is that you commit to, all of a sudden you have to give a little bit of yourself. And that was hard for me when I officially got married, and I realized that I was still growing. Still am, till this day, every day, all of us, right? All of a sudden, what we loved about ourselves had to give sometimes, because I had to make room for growth of those that were involved in my circle. as things were moving forward. And so when you're married to yourself, it's very difficult to think, well, I'm going to go get my nails done, I'm going to get my hair done. Didn't get one until I was 23, actually, but for some of us, that's a way of our thinking. This is me. I've got to take care of me before I can take care of anyone else. And then you feel a void when you can't, because all of it's, for me, it was hitting the gym. I would feel a void because I didn't get to hit the gym today. Oh my goodness, and now I'm too tired because I had to do help you out and help you out and help everybody out. And now why am I exhausted? Now I feel like I'm totally depleted, and I feel like I have not loved myself. And then all of a sudden you feel as if you are at a loss. Well, being married to yourself pulls you away from understanding that you have got to be a giver for others as well, who are counting on you. And so you have to think to yourself, well, okay, do I really have to go get my nails done? Do I really have to go hit the gym? Do I really have to go and read that book right now? Or can I just give a moment of time to go into this game and be about that? And is there a way that I can balance it? I remember going through my master's, and I would bring my books with me. I was writing my papers all the time in my head. And yes, there are times to this day that I look back and I go, I wasn't listening to on any of my children. And you just have to forgive yourself and say, you're writing a book in your head so that you could go and attend their events, or that you could take them to the park, or you could just be there in the room as they were going about their lives, and you had to set that aside. So when you are really thinking about being married to yourself, understand that now you're letting go of everybody else who may be needing you at that time. So that can be very difficult. So with that said, all of that I mentioned, who or what are you married to? Is it your spouse? Is it your work, your children, your parents, siblings, friends, lifestyle, or you? Think as to why that is pulling you away from what you would truly like to be married to. Because we can sit here and be prideful and say, yeah, that's my friends are all about my life, right? My parents and my siblings, they're all about my life. And then you wonder why you haven't gotten married yet, you don't have children yet. And that's to be respected if it is your choice. But if you are wondering why this hasn't happened yet, ask yourself, what are you married to right now that is perhaps pulling you away? Because time and energy is everything, and we have all got it, but we also spend it. Where are you spending it, and at what expense? So in the words of my mother, God bless us all, keep just doing the best you can in understanding where you stand with everything. Know that you have to forgive yourself for when you aren't thinking, in the best you can, because we all do it. But at the same time, don't mope and gripe about why things aren't happening. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself, what is it that you're giving to your time to, that is taking you away from what you would hope would already be arriving in your life. Because you can't get to your destiny if you're going in circles. So think about that. Have a great day, everyone. Take care of you. We will see you next time.